that I have experience as an entrepreneur in more than 3-4 companies, and then went on to graduate to being an entrepreneur. And so basically what I have done is I got 54% foreign ownership for Cornell Dubilier Electronics. I used to be their Vice President International, which was a 5,000 people organization, the largest mica capacitor manufacturer in the world. We had about 4,000 or more people in Taiwan, we had about 1,000 people in Haiti, and then I was setting up the Indian operation. So at the time when IBM and Coke were thrown out of India, we got 54% ownership, and that's something that I did. The second important thing was that as the chief executive for Mohammed I turned around a fairly sick unit in 3 years, from being a 10-year-old sick company into the most cash-rich company among the Arvind Mohammed group of companies. The third I did was to be the managing director for AT&T for South Asia region. I was the regional president. And as part of that, relevant to India is that I got 85% foreign ownership for one of our divisions in India, for 85% market share. For anyone knows Japanese PBX systems? Yes. That was introduced and done directly under my supervision. So, and lastly, these are all three as entrepreneur. The last one then was that I set up Epicenter Technologies, which was the second largest BPO company. I had 1,400 people, employees, working for the Fortune 50 companies like American Express, Capital One, Provident, Washington Mutual, etc. The question at the end of this session, what I'd like you to understand is what is entrepreneurship, what is the meaning of that, what are the advantages, disadvantages for an entrepreneur, and how to identify, more importantly, how to identify these entrepreneurs in organizations, and how do you create an enabling environment, an ecosystem, which will flourish the entrepreneurs in the organizations. So that's the learning outcomes. Anything else you want to learn today?
We would like to know how critical this entrepreneurship spirit is for any organization.
Yeah, good. I'm glad, because the next one is all about that. So, why is it important, right? So, it's very, very important, and I'm glad you have raised that question. That's a very pertinent question. There are 4 key drivers for the 21st century, which has got a very dominant and a very disruptive factor for companies. First among them is the technology itself. The technology, the rate of change or the rate of pace of which technologies are becoming obsolete are so high that earlier days, your technology lasted, the Fiat car lasted for 40 years, you didn't have to worry about it, you had enough time to recover. Today, software driven as it is so short that you have to recover all your events so fast that you just don't have the time. And that's going to be an intense pressure on corporations. Yeah? The second one is time to market. Again, in time to market is one of the key factors that's become extremely critical, especially because of the global competition. So if you look at time to market, how important it is, when you see the go-to-market, you will see that a major, apart from the allocation of resources to the product, is really how do you reduce the time to market. So today, if you are a new startup venture and you go to any venture capitalist, the first thing he'll say is, do you have an offshore facility? Are you outsourcing some of your R&D? Because they want 24/7. In India, in USA, in Brazil, in China, in Japan, everywhere. So that it's continuous, the whole production, so you come up. Because many a times you have a great idea, you come up with the product, and by the time you come out, the product is obsolete because somebody had a little more brilliant idea. So you cannot afford it. That's the second major and a very critical factor that's going on. The third is the cost pressures. Needless to say, it's become extremely price sensitive. As a result of that, companies are having to focus on efficiencies, cutting down, downsizing. You must have seen everyone laying off thousands and thousands of people. So you have to downsize your operations. Therefore, you have to become more efficient. You have to become more competent. So therefore, the third pressure is the cost pressure, which is very, very significant, and the emphasis is on efficiency and productivity. There's another very major factor, that is the HR, that is the human relationship factor. Sorry, okay, the human resource factor. If you look at the demographics around the world, barring India, all countries, including China, by 2030 is having labor shortage. So there's a serious pressure on labor, a very serious issue. And therefore, that's a pressure which is again for corporations, how do you keep and retain skilled labor? That's a big, big challenge. So these four factors which are there are so critical and so important that the demographics is really not in favor of companies right now. As though that's not bad enough, I'm sure most of you must have heard of Peter Drucker.
Yes,
the management guru. Yeah. Peter Drucker, almost 15, 20 years back, he came up and said, look, the 21st century is going to be characterized by a few large organizations surrounded by satellite companies. What does that mean? Nowadays, the average size of companies is going to be about 4 or 5 employees. That's all. Your generation, unlike mine, don't want to do donkey work, don't want to do hard work. You talk about life balance. My son tells me, I'm quitting this job because I want a life balance. I say, what? You're quitting that job? He said, yeah, this is nonsense. I don't get time to spend with my wife and children. Now that's the situation. So people want to work on their own. All the good and the competent people are saying, look, forget it. I'll set up with 4 or 5 of my friends, and that's not only going to serve this company, but also this company, and also these companies, and so on and so forth. So that's the trend that's going on. And that trend is also causing more and more pressure on companies to get competent people and to retain competent. So these are the 4 pressures where large corporations are getting into trouble. So the 21st century is not only, you think these 4 are problems, but the reality is the 21st century has even more problems. The 21st century is characterized by 2 events. One, it is going to be a very volatile. You see every business and economies are swinging wildly in one direction or the other direction. So it's become very uncertain, it's become very volatile, and we don't know where we're going. As though that's not bad enough, the technology and other things are creating chaos. Right? There's utter chaos that's happening in this scenario. There's a lot of uncertainty. And if you really look at this, what is the direction corporations should head? Nobody knows. There's no lack of direction, or even in that direction there's uncertainty and confusion. So this is the reason the future corporations of 21st century are going to be under intense pressure. How do you manage them? How do you manage these pressures? So you need a different skill set of people at all levels. So what is that skill set? That answers your question. Why you need entrepreneurs into organizations. We have to learn to not only predict, the lack of direction, the volatility, the chaos, but we have to start discerning what are the predictive patterns and then make decisions. So it's a very, very ongoing thing that's there. And this turbulence that's there in the 21st century characterized is the one that's going to change the need, and for companies to remain competitive, they have to be, even to stay at the same level, they have to. What is innovation? Is it a flash of genius? No. Innovation is a very persistent, consistent effort to try and study the various gaps and be able to deliver. That's what innovation is all about. So innovation is the ability to produce something through imaginative, creative things. So what you need is a person who's so passionate, who's so committed, who's so obsessed with what he's doing, that he's going to break all the rules and the barriers of everything and come up with something very innovative. And if you allow yourself to be able to go beyond and say, I can do it, creativity takes over. When you're so passionate and constantly thinking about it, you know, the flashes of genius come into you, and that's how innovation takes place. So, what is entrepreneurship? It has become imperative for us to obviously attract and retain good, competent people. That's given. That's to be done. And then also you need to cultivate entrepreneurship within your own organization. That's the truth that we say. Now, before I go on to tell you what entrepreneurship is, I want to also tell you that innovation in different companies have done a great job, innovators. I'm sure you must have studied the famous cases of 3M,
Yes, sir.
Apple,
Yes, sir.
and whatever. There's only one point I want to leave you with here. Sometimes innovation and actually the real final product comes out of more than one innovator, more than one person. For example, in the 3M, 1968, Spencer. Anyway, his name is Spencer something. He created that light glue stuff, right? And he gave so many seminars that nobody cared a damn. Nobody took interest in that. It just died off. It's only in 73 when Art Fry came in that because he had the handbook problem that you are aware of, that he decided to work on it a little bit more and created a product which would be the Post-it. Even then it didn't take off. For another 10 years it didn't take off. Till a marketing guy who is an entrepreneur, you don't have to be technical to be an entrepreneur. It could be anybody, right? Then he created and he went on and created and market for it. Applications, thought of new applications on various things. 10 years down that road, it became the best consumer product in the world. So what happened? 3-4 entrepreneurs together made what today is Post-it. So it's not that there's only one person, it's a teamwork. Any entrepreneurship is a teamwork.